Hey there, YouTube. Just giving you another update on the old Allis Chalmers M. So, got the exhaust manifold studs, got all these made. They're coarse on one end and fine thread on the other. So I got all of those made. Got the manifold kind of getting ready, set up, and send it off to get decked. So everything seals up nice. Got to do a little bit of cleanup on this one. Come on over and take a look at the manifold got sitting over here. It's going out the door. Got sandblasted, but I'm gonna have a shop go and just face the edges of all this. So down in these bottom pockets of the exhaust are kind of bad shape, but they'll be all right once we get them decked. This one's kind of cool on this unit here because this is a G there, and that's a K there. And so this can either run on diesel distillates, kerosene, or gasoline. So in order to switch them over, right now it's in gas mode. So when you flip this over, it changes the exhaust flow out, which then sends it through the intake manifold longer. So it makes a loop up and around and then comes on out the exhaust that way. So the other thing I was messing with was, this is the top cover for the rear end. I'm going to go through and kind of clean this all up. This is for my shift gears going across there. There's two springs that go inside this with these slide in there and are retained. And this is what returns you back to neutral. And then there's a detent ball that slides in from up here. It comes right down through that. So there's a spring in each one of these tubes. And then these guys slide in here and are retained in. So it just pushes it back to neutral. My springs are pretty worn out, not much spring left in them. Two different sizes here in the bag. So I'll get some new springs for that and get a new spring for the detent and go through that. I'm going to pull both of these shifters, the steering clutches arms out, and the other ones on the other crawler I have are in a lot better shape. They're a lot straighter and haven't been bent all up, so I'm going to take all this stuff on out and redo it. When I got it, it went steer to the right. That's because this jam nut right here had backed off and had made and changed the adjustments on it. And with that, it wouldn't actuate the brake clutch. So that's why I had no right steering. So I got that adjusted back up with the other one, and it should stay the same as when I remove and take everything off. So. And I got one stud here I got to get removed on out of that. So that's a small little update on the machine. Oh, I pulled off the brackets for the blade. Pulled them off and unbolted them. There's a few pieces that I'll have to slice off down in here. There's a bunch of welds on that stuff, and back on the other backside there's some there too. I'll get all that removed on out of there and come up with a better scheme of what I want to do. So as I'm working on the top cover of this Allis Chalmers M, I went and I got me some new springs, and I just got one universal spring. I just kind of cut it to length. I know this one's a hair longer than that one, but I wanted that side a little stiffer like it was to begin with. But I'm going to set each one of these, slide up inside there. I just do a little bit of cleaning on each one of them. Those will stick out. I'll compress those in here in a second and put in the new snap rings, and I'll be back with you in a sec to show you how it turned out. So here it is, all put together. That slide collar sits up there. Got a nice new snap ring on the inside there, one down there. Good spring tension against them. Not a lot, but enough to keep it to move. Try to keep everything centered. So I just gotta slide it on into that housing. So I got it in the housing now. This lines up there, keeps everything right and true. It goes down, it'll hit on the shelf on that side. And then it'll go And I think the reason the shim is there is because this is actually off, should be off center. Right about there for your neutral. Lines it up in the hole. So I'll be curious to kind of get it on and see how it all functions. It was real sloppy on the gear shift and the patterns. So that's why I was kind of hoping that putting a little bit better, I didn't put stiffer springs in, but I put more spring in. So put that in there for alignment. And then there's a bearing and a spring with a plug that go here that help hold it in detent. So I'll get this flipped around and get that spring and bearing put in there. And that was the old spring that was here was twisted up pretty bad, so I got a new spring for it, or a couple springs to try to see which one works the best, and I'll kind of go from there on which one's going to work. Alright, so I'm still monkeying around with this top cover. So when I had the cross slide in here, and my detent coming in up here, it wasn't one, I was having to put too much spring pressure on that detent to get it to hold in the detent. So what I found in my messing around was these two covers go on each side here. There's a bushing plate like this that sits up here as well. It's this guy. They sit in just like this. And the spring pins push against these plates like that one there. That's obviously what that is there. So what I was running happening, because this side also has that bushing which prevents it from going so far one way, and won't go too far that direction, so it limits that. So that's fine. But the shaft that was spring loaded on that crossbar was about 1/4 inch too short for making contact on this plate. And what I'm wanting to, so what I'm doing now, bear with me. What I'm doing now is I have this out. I took the measurement from the edge of this plate into where that pin was at, inside that hole, and it's about 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new plunger. It's 1/4 inch longer than the factory one to help offset that shaft to sit in my detent without having to have too much spring holding it down, because the more spring tension you put, the more it binds up. And also in all of my monkeying around, I found that the spring on the bottom of this one is worn out, so I got to get a new spring too. And that was allowing this shaft to slide down into the transmission case and allowing too many gear options, so to speak, which quite a few of them weren't even gears, so it would try to lock up on you. So as I'm making that plunger, we'll wander through the shop here. I've already been working on it. This is what I'm replicating here. This is the plunger. And that plunger is what sits inside this end here. So as you see, this end sticks out. And what was happening on this side, because that plate was there to try to get that detent to line up, this was 1/4 inch from touching that plate. So if I make this 1/4 inch longer, it will continue to apply spring pressure to help this, and then these are two equal springs. This one's maybe a bit shorter, so this one should be a little stronger. So it should help set that to where that detent lines up automatically. So that way I don't have to apply too much spring pressure on the detent. I'm gonna try it, we'll see how it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, I haven't heard anything, so I'll just put it back the way it was and figure out and maybe weaken this spring up like it was, and that's probably why that spring was crushed significantly more than this one. But I'd rather have good spring pressure on both sides equal and just have this just a hair longer to see if that will fix my issue. So that's what I've been machining up right now, and get ready to flip it around and chalk up, find my center, and mill down that other side. Sorry about the noise from the heater, but had to go and show that. Probably the best I've ever done. Alright, so I'm back out of the lathe there. Here's the two that I have. So, like I said, one's going to be 1/4 inch longer. Just on that part, everything else is the same. Slides in. Actuate just fine. So I'll get her put together and slide it in, and then try to capture a video of showing what I was trying to get done. Alright, so took a little longer than I wanted to on this, but I got it. This is sitting right in the detent. You can hear that click there. That's the detent. She returns back pretty good every time, so that's what I wanted. Before, it was sitting over here because that piece I made, this piece here wasn't long enough to contact that edge over there to hit this plate. So it was sitting and it was maxing out, it was stopping. So now where it's 1/4 inch longer, it's contacting that plate, causing it to spring back to catch it. So I got I hit up some WD-40 down there, kind of help loosen while I'm working it to see where everything's at. But I think it'll get better once I get grease and 80-90 down there on it. I didn't want to get too carried away on lubricating it because I am going to pull that whole plate apart and get it painted up and cleaned up. So next steps to be getting these off, as you can see on that one here. This guy here is bent way in. He's way out of shape compared to this other one. So camera probably doesn't do it justice, but I'm happy with that. So I got my play, and then my shift patterns will be there, and I just got to get that one spring out of there, and I'll get a replacement for it. And so that way, I got a couple shims in there to kind of help hold some tension against it all. But I think I'm gonna have to get a nice good thick spring down in there, and hopefully that'll help take care of that so I don't get too much slop, because before this wasn't in there and that was falling way down in there when I got it. So it was falling way off in the gear pattern and everything. So, all right, well, I'm just gonna wrap this video on up, and thank you for watching.